Let's get to the ACC. SMU, a 2-point favorite against Clemson, total of 59.5. Similar to the rushing conversation we just had, Clemson 10th highest rushing success rate, led by Phil Maffa across college football, FBS. Defensively ranking 28th in rushing success rate, allowed also plus 14 in turnover margin, but they are they are susceptible to explosive carries. Defensively ranking 127th in yards per successful rush allowed at 11.6 yards per attempt. Brett, you said you have a bet on this game. What is it?
On the ACC? No, I have a bet on the next one. I do have a strong stance, though, and it's more a stance against the team. First of all, this line is flipped from SMU opened a 1.5-point dog. It also was bet up through 55 points, which in college football, I believe, is the most frequently occurring point total. So that is worth noticing. I mean, you're talking about 3.5% versus 2.8, but hey, whatever. Look, Clemson in the ACC Championship game under Dabo Swinney, they are 8-1 outright. Their only loss came the first time in there in 2009, and since the program has become the program that it is, they've won 8 straight, and they're 6-1 against the spread in the last 7. That is definitely worth noting. However, let's take a look at how Clemson has done this year against when they play good defensive fronts. So when I say good defensive fronts, I mean Georgia, Louisville, and South Carolina. They scored 3, they scored 21, and then they scored 14, respectively. They played 4 top 60 points per drive defenses this year. They are 1-3 outright in those games, and SMU ranks 9th. And SMU has a really, really good defensive front. I know that people have talked about all year, well, look at SMU's strength of schedule. Look at SMU's strength of schedule. Guys, look at Clemson's strength of schedule in the ACC. 2 of their final 3 ACC foes finished the season with winning records. That's great. But before then, their foes combined for 11-29 final ACC records. I don't want to hear about SMU hasn't played anybody. Guys, Clemson hasn't played anybody either in terms of the ACC. And SMU has not been much better. Let's be clear. They played one top 45 opponent in terms of my numbers, and they did beat Louisville 34-27. If you're an SMU backer, you do have to be worried about that championship experience from Clemson, especially Dabo. But guys, the Clemson offense just lays an egg when they play anybody with half a pulse, and SMU's more than that. The SMU's a darn good defense, and I think that the Clemson offense is really going to struggle. I know it went up through 55. That may be too many points. I could see this being a defensive stalemate between two teams. Peter Woods is coming back for Clemson, and SMU's offensive front has not played anything like them. I know people are going to take the results against Nevada from the beginning of the year and BYU and things like that, but I think they went on bye. They came back and they started scoring 1 million points and playing a lot better. Haven't lost since that BYU game. I could just see both of these offenses kind of underperforming and this total going under 55.5.
Well, just to, I guess, add on to that, I mentioned Clemson's susceptibility to allowing explosive rushing plays. SMU ranks 83rd in rushing success rate. We saw it against Louisville in Clemson losing as a close to around a double-digit home favorite in that game, and the Cardinals had their fair share of explosive rushing plays, 1 or 2 going for touchdowns. So, yeah, I like your look toward the under, and maybe it's the combination of experience and Dabo plus the defensive setup. Now, I know you brought up the point about trusting Clemson's offense, but Clemson seems like the side here to me. David, what about you?
I like SMU in this one. I do. Clemson was not on my radar to even make this game. I mean, they've been such a non-factor all year, and I don't think they've been. I know they've kind of turned it on late, but I mean, they still. I mean, they could not have possibly backdoored their way into the conference championship more than they did at this point. And again, playing with house money, even though they have the right coach, right? I've just been impressed SMU all year long. I mean, they've been fun to watch. The stats really don't jump off the page, but they have felt explosive. They felt like a fun offense to watch. The defense has been really solid as well. I know they're getting a little bit of heat for their schedule, but they've beat everyone that's been put in front of them, and they lost a very close game to a very good BYU team, in my opinion, right? I mean, BYU, I think they tied for first in the Big 12, and I think the Big 12 is a solid conference there too. So I think everything, it's almost like a repeat of the last game we're talking about. I think everything in my mind points to SMU, and the only thing that gives me pause is just Dabo and everything else there. But again, this is huge for SMU, right? And this is it. This is so big for their program. It's so big for their history. It's so big for them moving forward that I think they come out strong. I think they come out flying. I think Clemson's probably one of the better offenses they played this year. So I mean, in theory, like the defense may struggle a bit more against them, but I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about that team. I think 1.5 is effectively like a pick 'em, right? So I love SMU. I love them up. It's not going to get to 3, but I would love them all the way to 3, honestly, because this is one of my stronger leans. As far as like the total, I was kind of leaning over, but you bring in some good points for the under, so I'm going to relook at it. But I'll probably fire on the under on that because that 55 is like a tricky number. You look at it, it's like very easy to see how it gets there. Like especially in college, you're like 30-27 bam, we're there so easily. But you bring up a good point, and I again, these teams might just come out a little more conservative than usual in all these games. So I'll look at the under very seriously as well.
Brett, any final takes before we get to the Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, if SMU loses this game, they're out of the college football playoff, even though they shouldn't be. They will be, and it's going to be unfortunate and probably set a dangerous precedent, and I don't think that should be underlooked. It's a team that if Clemson, the only way that Clemson can make the college football playoff is if they win, right? So, of course, they're like, hey, we need to win to get in, but SMU is, guys, if we lose this game, we're not leaving it to the committee. We are going to fall out. And I think they're playing with it's just a little bit different for SMU than it is for Clemson. I don't think that can be understated for the players here, especially moving up from Group of 5 to Power 5, where all they've heard this whole time is, well, you guys are a glorified Group of 5 team, especially beginning of the year. The disrespect card is no, maybe Miami can play it a little bit stronger than SMU, and maybe that's a bit, you're right. It's like SMU and Miami are the two teams right now, of course, both in the ACC. They're kind of like, guys, we're not receiving any sort of respect here. We need to get out there and show them what's up and show them who we are. And I do think that extra little bit of motivation can help that defense play a little bit stronger. That's just kind of where I fall there.
Yeah, right, and real quick, to add on there real quick, it's changed a little bit in the NIL world, right? Because money talks, but this it feels like this is one of these games, right? That like your average college football fan, your average probably high school recruit, they probably haven't watched a lot of SMU games, right? You put them on prime time, they're going against a major program, right? Like Clemson is still recent enough to feel like a powerhouse, even though they haven't been good the past few years. Like this is one of those games that can, I think, really propel a program into that next sort of stratosphere. I mean, it almost feels like that when Boise State beat, Oklahoma in that Fiesta Bowl, like I'm dating myself, like a long, long, long time ago. It really set their program up for the next like decade plus, right? I mean, Boise State is, where they are. So I think to Brett's point, it means everything, and I think they do have to win this to make the playoff, right? And I think it's important, and it's the biggest game in their history. And listen, like, yeah, Clemson still has Dabo and stuff, but like, there's only like so many times you can like really get up for it. And like Clemson's also not like, let's be clear, neither of these teams I think are like actual real title contenders. So like, yeah, I'm sure Clemson like to win it and have an argument, or get in the playoff. And because I think they ought to get in the playoff, right? If they win this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they get in it, but like they're not going to win it all. So it just means so much more for SMU, and it's hard to like quantify that in a point spread and picking a side, but they're going to come out so fired up wanting to win this one, and they're the better team, and I think they overcome like the experience and the coaching, maybe coach experience factor there too.
And just to back up your claim about not many people watching them, the ratings for each ACC team did drop earlier today on Twitter, and SMU dead last.
Yeah, I mean, they've been really under the radar for a long time. I mean, what's the last time they were this, like, it has to be the last time they were even close to this relevant was like pre-death penalty, right?
Pony Express, yeah.
Yeah.